If you have ever, even once, tried biking in a big city, you know the feeling, right? That constant buzz of traffic, pedestrians popping out of nowhere, making these split-second decisions. It's a lot. But what if we could actually see what's happening inside a cyclist's brain during those critical moments? Well, that's exactly what a group of researchers decided to find out. So that's the big question. Researchers over at Western Michigan University wanted to know what is really going on up there. They wanted to get past just watching what people do and actually measure the mental effort, the focus, and the decision-making process as it's all happening in real time. And, the stakes here could not be higher. This number, 90%, that's the percentage of all bicyclist fatalities caused by a collision with a car. It's a really stark reminder that understanding how bikes and cars interact is quite literally a matter of life and death. And to make things safer, we've got to understand the brain behind the handlebars. Okay, so to find those answers safely, you can't just send cyclists into heavy traffic with a bunch of sensors and hope for the best. No way. You need a controlled environment. You basically need a flight simulator, but for bikes. And this is what they built. It's an absolutely incredible setup. You've got a real bicycle on a stationary platform, and it's all wired into a super powerful computer. The riders wear Oculus Rift VR goggles, which completely plunges them into this hyper-realistic virtual city street. They can feel that rush of traffic, but with none of the actual real-world risk. The whole system works in this perfect, seamless loop. The person pedals and steers the bike, and sensors translate every little movement into the virtual world. They see that world through the VR headset, and all the while, this specialized EEG headset is reading their brainwaves. It's pretty amazing. Now, this is the secret sauce to the whole experiment, the EEG tech. The easiest way to think about it is like a mental effort meter. You have 14 electrodes measuring electrical activity, and those red areas you see on the brain map, that's where the brain is working its hardest. It gives scientists this just unprecedented look at the cognitive load of biking down a busy street. So with this high-tech lab all set up and ready to go, it was time to put some cyclists to the test. The researchers designed 4 super common but also pretty risky urban cycling scenarios to see exactly how people would react. The participants were basically put through a virtual gauntlet of everyday city challenges. They had to deal with a busy intersection, merge with cars in a shared lane, and react to pedestrians. First just one person, and then a whole group of them. Each one of these was designed to stress test a different part of a cyclist's perception and their reaction time. And this is where it gets really fascinating, because the study didn't just look at what the cyclists did. It compared their actions to what their brain scans were revealing. And let me tell you, the results were full of surprises. All right, first up, a red light at an intersection. You'd think pretty much everyone would stop, right? Well, nope. A full 44% of cyclists just slowed down and kind of rolled on through, looking for a gap in traffic. This just perfectly shows the difference between the official rules of the road and how people actually behave in the real world. And when they did decide to go, just how big of a gap did they need? This gap acceptance chart tells a really interesting story. Cyclists almost never, ever took a gap that was smaller than 3 seconds. But as soon as that gap hit 4 seconds or more, they felt way more comfortable crossing. There's a really clear mental tipping point for what feels safe. The study also found a huge difference based on experience level. When they had to share a lane with cars, beginners, they overwhelmingly hugged the right side of the road. But the experienced cyclists, they were far more likely to take the lane, moving right into the middle or even to the left. It's so clear that experience dramatically changes a rider's confidence and their whole sense of where they belong. Honestly, this result is just stunning. When a single pedestrian was in the crosswalk, only a quarter of the cyclists actually stopped for them. But when a group of pedestrians showed up, that number leaped to 61%. A group just commands authority and attention in a way that one person simply doesn't. Wild, right? So that's the behavior part. But what about the brain waves? Remember, the EEG was measuring cognitive effort, especially in the frontal lobe. That's the part of your brain responsible for focus, planning, and problem solving. Basically all the stuff you need to do to bike safely. So the first major insight from the brain data was kind of a paradox. The brains of the expert cyclists were actually working less hard. Now, it's not that they were paying less attention, it's that their brains were just more efficient. For them, the super complex task of cycling in traffic, had become more automatic, so it required less conscious mental energy. And here's another fascinating find. Riders over the age of 25 showed consistently higher brain activity. The thinking here is that they were paying more attention and being more deliberate in what they were doing, maybe reflecting a more fully developed prefrontal cortex, which is kind of the brain's risk assessment center. So what do we do with all this amazing information? This isn't just a bunch of data for a scientific paper. It's a blueprint. Understanding how cyclists actually perceive and react to the road is really the first step in designing streets that are safer for absolutely everyone. So let's just quickly recap what we've learned. We now have concrete data that shows experience and age fundamentally change how a cyclist sees the road. We know that beginners and experts use shared lanes in totally different ways, and that a group of pedestrians gets way more respect than a single person. These are the kinds of powerful insights that city planners and engineers can actually use to build better, smarter streets. And all of this leaves us with one final big thought. For decades, we've designed our cities around the car, but now, with technology that lets us literally peek inside the minds of cyclists and pedestrians, we have this incredible new opportunity. What if we could design infrastructure that anticipates a cyclist's next move, that eases their mental workload, and that intuitively guides him to safety? That's the real promise of this research, and it could completely change our cities forever.